This is the painting that was my mom's, and I went and had it framed. My mom never saw this frame, but I thought it was the perfect frame for it to accentuate its beauty after she died, and so I just wanted to point that out. But if you can believe it, I left out something really important in that video that I uploaded last night about the monarchy, and I was talking about particularly Judah and the monarchy, that God put an end to the monarchy because both Jeroboam and Rehoboam were leading all the people away from God. And there was an incident with Jeroboam that I forgot to tell you about, and this is in regards to knowing that the monarch is the king that had the withered arm, which is the ruling arm that holds the scepter in the hand that's withered, okay? Because their monarchy is cut off and done, and they're blinded in their eyes, and their right hand is utterly withered with their right arm that's outstretched, and that's what a monarch does to rule. So I forgot to tell you this story, and I wanted to finish telling you about it. Now, I told you in the last video that people see that they think the Antichrist is going to be blinded in the right eye, and that his right arm will be utterly withered, and the right hand, the right arm. But I'm telling you that that's not talking about a feature of their body that you can actually look at. It's talking about the monarchy being dried up, and God blinded their eyes so that, you know, they would be punished for leading the people away from God and into false gods. So here is the biggest story that I forgot to tell you about. Jeroboam's hand actually withered in 1 Kings 13. And it says in verse 1, "Suddenly, as Jeroboam was standing beside the altar to burn incense, there came a man of God from Judah to Bethel by the word of the Lord. And he cried out against the altar by the word of the Lord. O altar, this is what the Lord says. A son named Josiah will be born to the house of David, and upon you he will sacrifice the priests of the high places who burn incense upon you, and human bones will be burned upon you." That day the man of God gave a sign, saying, "The Lord has spoken this sign. Surely the altar will be split apart, and the ashes upon it will be poured out." Now when King Jeroboam, who was at the altar in Bethel, heard the word that the man of God had cried out against it, he stretched out his hand and said, "Seize him." But the hand he stretched out towards him withered. So this was the king whose hand withered, and this is a sign of the monarchy being withered and blinded. But the hand he stretched out towards him withered, so that he could not pull it back. And the altar was split apart, and the ashes poured out, according to the sign that the man of God had given by the word of the Lord. Then the king responded to the man of God, "Intercede with the Lord your God and pray that my hand may be restored." So the man of God interceded with the Lord, and the king's hand was restored to him as it was before. Then the king said to the man of God, "Come home with me and refresh yourself, and I will give you a reward." But the man of God replied, "If you were to give me half of your possessions, I still would not go with you, nor would I eat bread or drink water in this place. For this is what I was commanded by the word of the Lord. You must not eat bread or drink water or return by the way you came." So the man of God went another way and did not return by the way he had come to Bethel. Then it says in verse 11, "Now a certain old prophet was living in Bethel, and his sons came and told him all the deeds that the man of God had done that day in Bethel. They also told their father the words that the man had spoken to the king. 'Which way did he go?' their father asked, and his sons showed him the way taken by the man of God who had come from Judah. So the prophet said to his sons, 'Saddle the donkey for me.' Then they saddled the donkey for him, and he mounted it and went after the man of God. He found him sitting under an oak tree and asked, 'Are you the man of God who came from Judah?' 'I am,' he replied. So the prophet said to the man of God, 'Come home with me and eat some bread.' But the man replied, 'I cannot return with you or eat bread or drink water with you in this place. For I've been told by the word of the Lord, you must not eat bread or drink water there or return by the way you came.' And then the prophet replied, 'I too am a prophet like you, and an angel spoke to me by the word of the Lord, saying, Bring him back with you to your house, so that he may eat bread and drink water.' The old prophet was lying to him, but the man of God went back with him, ate bread in his house, and drank water. While they were sitting at the table, the word of the Lord came to the prophet who had brought him back, and the prophet cried out to the man of God who had come from Judah, 'This is what the Lord says, because you have defied the word of the Lord and have not kept the commandment that the Lord your God gave you, but you went back and ate bread and drank water in the place where he told you not to do so, your body shall never reach the tomb of your fathers.' And after the man of God had finished eating and drinking, the old prophet who had brought him back saddled the donkey for him. As he went on his way, a lion met him on the road and killed him, and his body was left lying in the road with the donkey and the lion standing beside it. And there were men passing by who saw the body lying in the road with the lion standing beside it, and they went and reported this in the city where the old prophet lived. When the prophet who had brought him back from his journey heard this, he said, 'It is the man of God who disobeyed the command of the Lord. Therefore the Lord has delivered him to the lion, and it has mauled him and killed him according to the word that the Lord had spoken to him.' Then the old prophet instructed his son, 'Saddle the donkey for me.' So they saddled it, and he went and found the body lying in the road with the donkey and the lion standing beside it. The lion had not eaten the body or mauled the donkey. So the old prophet lifted up the body of the man of God, laid it on the donkey, and brought it back to his own city to mourn for him and bury him. Then he laid the body in his own tomb, and they lamented over him, 'Oh, my brother!' And he had buried him. After he had buried him, the prophet said to his sons, 'When I die, you must bury me in the tomb where the man of God is buried. Lay my bones beside his bones, for the message that he cried out by the word of the Lord against the altar in Bethel and against all the shrines on the high places in the cities of Samaria will surely come to pass.' And even after all these events, Jeroboam did not repent of his evil ways. But again he appointed priests for the high places from every class of people. He ordained everyone who desired to be a priest of the high places. And this was the sin of the house of Jeroboam that led to his extermination and destruction from the face of the earth." Then if we carry on to 1 Kings 14, the next chapter, we have Ahijah's prophecy against Jeroboam. At that time, Abijah, son of Jeroboam, became ill, and Jeroboam said to his wife, "Now get up, disguise yourself, so they will not recognize you as my wife, and go to Shiloh." Some say Shiloh, but they say Shiloh in Israel. "For Ahijah the prophet is there. It was he who spoke about my kingship over this people. Take with you 10 loaves of bread, some cakes, and a jar of honey, and go to him, and he will tell you what will become of the boy." Jeroboam's wife did as instructed, and she arose and went to Shiloh and arrived at Ahijah's house. Now Ahijah could not see, for his eyes were dim because of his age. But the Lord had said to Ahijah, Behold, the wife of Jeroboam is coming to ask you about her son, for he is ill. You are to say such and such to her, because when she arrives, she will be disguised. So when Ahijah heard the sound of her feet entering the door, he said, Come in, wife of Jeroboam. Why are you disguised? For I have been sent to you with bad news. Go tell Jeroboam that this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. I raised you up from among the people and appointed you ruler over my people Israel. I tore the kingdom away from the house of David and gave it to you. But you were not like my servant David, who kept my commandments and followed me with all his heart, doing only what was right in my eyes. You have done more evil than all who came before you. You have proceeded to make for yourself other gods and molten images to provoke me, and you have flung me behind your back. And because of this, behold, I am bringing disaster on the house of Jeroboam. I will cut off from Jeroboam every male, both slave and free in Israel. I will burn up the house of Jeroboam as one burns up dung until it's gone. Anyone belonging to Jeroboam who dies in the city will be eaten by dogs, and anyone who dies in the field will be eaten by the birds of the air, for the Lord has spoken. As for you, get up and go home. When your feet enter the city, the child will die. All Israel will mourn for him and bury him, for this is the only one belonging to Jeroboam who will receive a proper burial, because only in him has the Lord, the God of Israel, found any good in the house of Jeroboam. Moreover, the Lord will raise up for himself a king over Israel, who will cut off the house of Jeroboam. This is the day, yes, even today, for the Lord will strike Israel as a reed is shaken in the water. He will uproot Israel from this good land that he gave their fathers, and he will scatter them beyond the Euphrates, because they have made their Asherah poles, provoking the Lord to anger. So he will give Israel over on account of the sins Jeroboam has committed and has caused Israel to commit. Then Jeroboam's wife got up and departed for Tirzah, and as soon as she stepped over the threshold of the house, the boy died, and they buried him. And all Israel mourned for him according to the word that the Lord had spoken through his servant Ahijah, the prophet. Nadab succeeds Jeroboam. As for the rest of the acts of Jeroboam, how he waged war and how he reigned, they are indeed written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Israel. And the length of Jeroboam's reign was 22 years, and he rested with his fathers, and his son Nadab reigned in his place. Meanwhile, Rehoboam, Solomon's son, reigns in Judah. Meanwhile, Rehoboam, son of Solomon, reigned in Judah. He was 41 years old when he became king, and he reigned 17 years in Jerusalem, the city that the Lord had chosen from all the tribes of Israel, in which to put his name. His mother's name was Naamah the Ammonite. And Judah did evil in the sight of the Lord, and by the sins they committed, they provoked him to jealous anger more than all their fathers had done. They also built for themselves high places, sacred pillars, and Asherah poles on every high hill and under every green tree. There were even male shrine prostitutes in the land. They imitated all the abominations of the nations the Lord had driven out before the Israelites. In the 5th year of Rehoboam's reign, Shishak, king of Egypt, came up and attacked Jerusalem. He seized the treasures of the house of the Lord and of the royal palace. He took everything, including all the gold shields that Solomon had made. Then King Rehoboam made bronze shields in their place and committed them to the care of the captains of the guard on duty at the entrance to the royal palace. And whenever the king entered the house of the Lord, the guards would bear the shields, and later they would return them to the guard room. As for the rest of the acts of Rehoboam, along with all that he did, are they not written in the books of the Chronicles of the Kings of Judah? There was war between Rehoboam and Jeroboam throughout their days, and Rehoboam rested with his fathers and was buried with them in the city of David. His mother's name was Naamah the Ammonite, and his son Abijam reigned in his place. So God demonstrated on Jeroboam that his kingdom was coming to an end by showing the withered hand. And when the king stretched out his arm, it became withered. And then the prophet prayed for him, and then it was restored. And this is what I'm telling you is this description in Zechariah. But first I want to tell you, if you go to the next chapter, it says, in the 18th year of the reign of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, Abijam became king of Judah, and he reigned in Jerusalem 3 years. His mother's name was Maacah, daughter of Abishalom. And Abijam walked in all the sins that his father before him had committed. And his heart was not as fully devoted to the Lord his God as the heart of David his forefather had been. Nevertheless, for the sake of David, the Lord his God gave him a lamp in Jerusalem by raising up a son to succeed him and to make Jerusalem strong. For David had done what was right in the eyes of the Lord and had not turned aside from anything the Lord commanded all the days of his life, except in the matter of Uriah the Hittite. And there was war between the houses of Rehoboam and Jeroboam all the days of Abijam's life. Now I'm just going to read this short little piece in 1 Kings 15, which carries on from the last sentence that I left off on. In the 18th year of the reign of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, Abijam became king of Judah, and he reigned in Jerusalem 3 years. His mother's name was Maacah, daughter of Abishalom. And Abijam walked in all the sins that his father before him had committed, and his heart was not fully devoted to the Lord his God, as the heart of David his forefather had been. Nevertheless, for the sake of David, the Lord his God gave him a lamp in Jerusalem by raising up a son to succeed him and to make Jerusalem strong. For David had done what was right in the eyes of the Lord and had not turned aside from anything that the Lord had commanded all the days of his life, except in the matter of Uriah the Hittite. And there was war between the houses of Rehoboam and Jeroboam all the days of Abijam's life. As for the rest of the acts of Abijam, along with all his accomplishments, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Judah? And there was war between Abijam and Jeroboam. And Abijam rested with his fathers and was buried in the city of David, and his son Asa reigned in his place. This Egyptian Pharaoh Shishak that came and took all the gold and silver, and the name Shishak, they believe that he is the Pharaoh identified as Shoshank. Now I just kind of want to take a little side road here to tell you about this Pharaoh Shishak, because I find it very interesting. While Shishak's inscription generally affirms the biblical description of his invasion of Judah, one of the most difficult questions to answer is why Jerusalem, which is the only city mentioned in 1 Kings 14:25, does not seem to be among the places mentioned on the Bubasti portal. Several solutions have been proposed. It could be one of the name rings has been lost to erosion. It is known that the row recording the places in Judah is heavily damaged. Another theory is that because Rehoboam gave Shishak the treasures of the temple and his royal palace, the city was not destroyed. They cite 2 Chronicles 12:7-9. Thus Rehoboam saved Jerusalem from destruction by paying tribute to the Egyptian king. One final solution has been proposed by Egyptologist Kenneth Kitchens. He has reconstructed name rings 105 and 106 to read the heights or highlands of David. or the heights of David. Kitchen has found confirmation of David as an alternative spelling for David in the 6th century AD. Ethiopic inscription with a clear reference to King David from one of his psalms. He also notes that the toponyms in the Shishak list are arranged geographically, and the heights of David occurs in a row which includes sites in southern Judah and the Negev, the same general area in which David was a fugitive when he was on the run from Saul. Kitchen claims that while not certain, there is a high degree of possibility that Shishak claimed to have conquered an area called the Heights of David when he invaded Judah in the 10th century BC. Some scholars believe that this may be a reference to the city of Jerusalem. Shishak evidently had his eye on his northern neighbor for some time by harboring Jeroboam. He was contributing to the division of Israel. And when the split occurred, it was an opportune time for him to deal a major blow to the two now weakened kingdoms. So he launched a campaign. The underlying cause seems to have been to break Israel's commercial monopoly in the north and to obtain much needed booty rather than to annex the area. Given King Solomon's wealth in 2 Chronicles 9:13-28, if Shishak did indeed pillage the temple and royal treasures, then vast amounts of gold and silver flooded the Egyptian coffers. Is there any evidence of this? It is interesting to note that when Shishak's son, Asorkin I, became king, he erected a granite pillar in a temple in Bubastis in the eastern Nile Delta, on which he boasts of making an offering of 2,300 deben, which is 383 tons of gold and silver to the deities of Egypt. Further, his successor, Shishak II, was buried in a coffin made of pure silver. Some have questioned where the Egyptian pharaohs acquired much gold and silver. One plausible explanation is that it may have come in large part from the royal treasury and the temple of Jerusalem, as well as from other cities taken in Shishak's invasion of Judah and Israel in 926/5 BC. So I'm going to show you, this is a sphinx-headed silver coffin of Shishak II, who took Shishak's place, or Shishak I's place, to rule. This looks like a bird's head to me, looks like a falcon head. They called it a sphinx head, but this sarcophagus is solid silver. The evidence from ancient texts, the Bible inscription on the Bubastite portal, and from archaeology, Shishak's victory stela at Megiddo and destruction layers at various sites converged to affirm that Shishak was Shishak the first, and that he did indeed invade Judah and Israel. Discrepancies in the events as recorded by each side are to be expected and are plausibly explained. It would appear that Shishak did not destroy Jerusalem, but took a great amount of gold and silver from the city, making Jerusalem an Egyptian vassal state, as described in 2 Chronicles 12, 7 through 8. Due in part to his effective political maneuvers, history records that Shishak was one of the most powerful pharaohs of the 22nd dynasty, consistent with his image in the pages of Scripture. So now you can see in that huge story about Jeroboam, who was ruling the 10 northern tribes of Israel, which I'm now thinking are the 10 horns, and they all went astray because the king took an oath to uphold the law of God, the commandments of God, and to get the fellow servants underneath him that he ruled to be believers and followers of God as well. And if his example was terrible, he was like a worthless shepherd who did not care for his servants, for the flock. Instead, these kings were fattening themselves up in rich living and neglecting the people that they ruled. So this is why God brought these other monarchies in, Pharaoh Shishak, to invade Judah and Rehoboam and Jeroboam. And then, we had Babylon later invaded with King Nebuchadnezzar. So as I was telling you in the last video, the first beast in the book of Revelation is Jerusalem, and God had said that his people had played the harlot against him. And so he brought the sword against the head, which is the king that wears the crown, and the deadly wound was healed. So we saw that Israel had been a desolation for centuries, and now God is restoring her in 1948, and then they're going to try to place an earthly king back on the monarchy throne. And I was telling you in the last video that God had said in Zechariah 11, "And I took my staff, even beauty, and cut it asunder, that I might break my covenant which I had made with all the people. And it was broken in that day. And so the poor of the flock that waited upon me knew that it was the word of the Lord. And I said unto them, If you think good, give me my price, and if not, forbear. So they weighed for my price 30 pieces of silver. And the Lord said unto me, Cast it unto the potter, a goodly price that I was prized at of them. And I took the 30 pieces of silver and cast them to the potter in the house of the Lord." And remember, this is exactly what Judas did when he betrayed King Jesus. "And I took the 30 pieces of silver and cast them to the potter in the house of the Lord. And then I cut asunder my other staff, even bands, that I might break the brotherhood between Judah and Israel and their monarchies." So he broke the royal stick in two, meaning their reign was over. And he said, "Woe to the idle shepherd that leaveth the flock. The sword shall be upon his arm and upon his right eye. His arm shall be clean dried up or withered, and his right eye shall be utterly darkened." So this is the blinding of, when they were gouging out the eyes of the kings. So I already talked in the last video how when King Jesus came, part of his miraculous healing was to restore the sight of the blind. It was showing that he is the last final king of Judah that's going to reign forever, and he's going to restore the monarchy. And so he made the blind to see. The last act of King Nebuchadnezzar with the last king of Judah was to blind the eyes of Zedekiah by gouging them out. And he killed all of his sons that were princes, so none of them could rule and reign on the throne. It was the end of the monarchy. And so the right hand that holds the scepter, that they take an oath to uphold the law of God, that was clean dried up and withered. So this is talking about the monarchy, and it's not a physical trait that you see with a person in the book of Revelation. Like a lot of people attribute that this is going to be how the Antichrist looks. It's going to be blind in one eye and a withered arm. But this is actually showing, that their kingdom had come to an end. Their monarchy had come to an end. So let me just explain something in that verse 2. So I was telling you that the first beast was Israel, Jerusalem, and the sons and daughters of Zion, and especially the monarchy of Israel and Judah. It says, "Then I saw a beast with 10 horns and 7 heads rising out of the sea. There were 10 royal crowns on its horns and blasphemous names on its heads." Okay, so they were committing abominations. You had the 10 tribes of Israel there, and they were subjects under the crown of the king. So the heads, as I showed you, Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, he was the head of gold, and the monarchs are the head of state, and that's one of their royal titles. When it says, "The beast I saw was like a leopard with the feet of a bear and mouth of a lion, and the dragon gave the beast his power and his throne and great authority." Now we know that this is showing a monarchy that's being restored, being given. He's giving the beast its power and authority, because that's what the king receives. As I told you, when they're coronated, they hold the scepters in their hands, the scepter of mercy and the other scepter, and they are taking an oath to uphold the laws of God. And so they're endued with power from God, and they rule and reign representing God, okay? So we can see that this is a kingdom, this is a king that is giving his power to the beast. And what is the beast? In Daniel 7 we see, "So he told me the interpretation of these things. These 4 great beasts are 4 kings." So the beast is the king who will rise from the earth. But the saints of the Most High will receive the kingdom and possess it forever. Yes, forever and ever. Then I wanted to know the true meaning of the 4th beast, which was different from all the others, extremely terrifying, devouring and crushing with iron teeth and bronze claws, then trampling underfoot whatever was left. I also wanted to know about the 10 horns on its head, and the other horn that came up before, which 3 of them fell. The horn whose appearance was more imposing than the others, with eyes and with a mouth that spoke words of arrogance. And as I watched, this horn was waging war against the saints and prevailing against them, until the Ancient of Days arrived and pronounced judgment in favor of the saints of the Most High, and the time came for them to possess the kingdom. This is what he said. The 4th beast is a 4th kingdom that will appear on the earth, different from all other kingdoms, and it will devour the whole earth, trample it down and crush it. And the 10 horns are 10 kings who will rise from this kingdom. After them another king, different from the earlier ones, will rise and subdue 3 kings, and he will speak out against the Most High and oppress the saints of the Most High, intending to change the appointed times and laws, and saints will be given into his hand for a time, times, and half a time. But the court will convene, and his dominion will be taken away and completely destroyed forever. Then the sovereignty, dominion, and greatness of the kingdoms under all of heaven will be given to the people, the saints of the Most High. His kingdom will be an everlasting kingdom, and all rulers will serve and obey him. Thus ends the matter. As for me, Daniel, my thoughts troubled me greatly, and my face turned pale. But I kept the matter to myself. So we saw that verse, and the dragon gave the beast his power. So the king is the beast who rules the kingdom of his subjects. So they're all the beast. But clearly Daniel said that the king was the beast. So when Daniel was given the interpretation of the things that he saw, it was said that the 4 great beasts that he saw were 4 kings. So the beasts were the kings, and this is what we see in Revelation. And the dragon, this is the anointed one that's anointed with the dragon spittle, I believe, gave the beast his power and his throne and great authority. So the king is the beast. He's the one that rules it. And he rules his kingdom. So we clearly see when it said, and the dragon gave the beast his power and his throne and a great authority. Clearly this is the monarchy, and the king is said to be a beast. And one of the heads of the beast appeared, now that's one of the kings of the beast, appeared to be mortally wounded. But the mortal wound was healed, and the whole world marveled and followed the beast. And they worshiped the dragon who had given authority to the beast, and they worshiped the beast, saying, who is like the beast, who can wage war against it? So there you go. The king is the beast. He's the monarch that has the power and authority. And like I said, when this king is coronated, he receives power and authority as the head of state. And Nebuchadnezzar, the king, was the head of gold. And you had the monarchy of Judah and Israel. And God brought a sword against them. They had the deadly sword wound, and their kingdom came to an end. And so this was the judgment of God. So clearly we are seeing in Revelation that this beast is a king. He has power and authority, and one of his heads was mortally wounded. And this was the monarchy of the kings of Judah and the kings of Israel. And God brought an end to the monarchy. But what Jesus was revealing in those miracles of the withered arm and the blinding of the eyes of the kings. So when King Jesus, who's going to reign forever on the throne of David, came to the earth, he healed the blind eyes and the withered arm, the withered hand, which revealed the restoration of the monarchy through him. And he put an end to the monarchy of Judah and Israel. And at the time that Israel went to Babylon, Zedekiah's eyes were blinded and his kingdom was utterly withered. And that was the end, the last ruling, reigning monarch of Judah. And it's not going to be restored until the time of Jacob's trouble. And Israel has chosen an earthly king that they're going to put in place that's going to be anointed with the royal oil, and he has the circumcision in his flesh, so they're going to accept him as king, and this will be the last king to rule until the Messiah comes to reign and take over the kingdoms of this world. So I just wanted to add those things. I hope you enjoyed listening to this.